Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Open your mind and let go of the fears of midlife and aging. Some people see midlife as a time of stress and overwhelm, but we're not going to do that. We see midlife as an opportunity for continued learning and growth. Life's a journey, not a destination. It's a continual process and can get better all the time. And the best part, you can write your own rules. So in each Midlife Magic episode, we're going to have conversations with interesting and cool people that will give you the inspiration and know-how on how to live your best life. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Midlife Magic. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe and healthy out there while we navigate this unprecedented time in our lives. I hope this week's episode brings you some fun, brings you some laughter, just kind of gives you some good feels and a good vibe. Marni Kagan is a professional matchmaker. She's based out of Manhattan. She's a lot of fun. She has some great information for us today. We talk about a lot of different things. Are you midlife and you're getting back out there after being married or in a long-term relationship? Or maybe you're midlife and you haven't met that special somebody yet. Marni is here. She's going to give you all so much amazing information on dating, kind of do's and don'ts, it's chock full of information, tips, and advice on dating. So we really hope you enjoy this episode, and let's just jump right into it. So welcome to the show, Marni Kagan. I am really excited to have you here. Thank you for being here today. I know who you are, but could you share with our listeners who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be a guest today. I'm a professional matchmaker. I live in Manhattan with my husband and my 5-year-old son. I have 3 wonderful stepsons in their 20s. I was a practicing attorney for 10 years before I decided at 35 years old to make a career change. And in 2008, I followed my passion for helping people find love, and I started my business. And I work with people who are smart, accomplished, quality men and women who are looking to find a quality partner. And this is not, old-fashioned Fiddler on the Roof type of matchmaking. It's a very modern type of matchmaking for people who are serious. Maybe, the apps haven't served them well. We can talk about that. And they come to me and we are a partnership. We're a team and we talk about what they're looking for. And I help find the matches and vet them. And I also offer dating coaching, which is hand in hand with the introductions. And together we work with the men and women to find love.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. I have to ask, when you say dating coaching and you say, are you actually there on the date?
No. So basically, I don't chaperone any of the dates,
okay.
but I give my clients a lot of information in advance as I do the person who's meeting them. But after the dates, I'm getting the feedback. And so I hear from my client, what they liked about the person, what maybe were some question marks. And I'm also hearing from the other person about their feedback about my client. And so when I say I offer feedback, sometimes things are happening on dates that people aren't even aware of. And so when I hear the feedback, I share it and we talk about, so why did this person have this impression? Let's talk about some of the things that are being said on the dates. And sometimes this feedback offers kind of like this eureka moment of like, so this is happening. And sometimes it's really simple, easy things. And sometimes it's bigger picture things that someone needs to work on. Also, the coaching is not just about what's going on the dates, but even helping people identify what they're looking for and what the right partner is going to be like, because sometimes it comes down to people really don't know what they need and they're going for the wrong kinds of people. And the track record of the relationships hasn't been great because they're just not focusing on the right qualities or the right values. And they're just not having success because they're not focusing on the right things.
Gotcha. Oh, Marni, I love what you're sharing. I've got all these questions and things going off in my brain because I'm a marriage and family therapist. So I almost see you as the precursor to folks coming to me at some point down the road when, they hit trouble or a challenge in their relationship or marriage. So this is just fascinating to me. And I know I wanted to have you on the show and talk about dating in midlife and what is that. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start if that was me. I wouldn't even know where to begin. And my brain does go to those apps that are out there. Everybody talks about these apps, and I don't know. Like, what's it like for a midlifer? And when I say midlifer, I mean like 35, 37 plus. That's kind of where I see that starting.
Sure. And that's an important distinction from later on in life, even because other things happen, further down the road. But let's just say 30 somethings to 50s, late 50s. It's interesting. So, and everyone has kind of different situations as far as dating midlife. And I say that because I work with people who've never been married. So in their 30s and 40s, they're looking to start a family. Well, I also work with people midlife who've been married and are divorced, and they've re-entered the dating world. Things are totally different now with the apps being so common and prevalent. So it's hard to know where to start. I think I'll start with someone who's re-entering after being married, because that's a different challenge. They are used to the comfort level of the partner they've shared, 10 years of marriage or whatever it is. And so now they're starting at ground zero again, where someone doesn't know them, and they can't make assumptions that someone's going to know them or read their mind or get them. And it's just starting again with some discomfort and nervousness. So some people do go on the apps or the old school online match.com. And I think I have kind of a funny story about a divorced dad I worked with. He had been married almost 20 years, and he was a businessman. He was very efficient, kind of like to get straight to the point. And he came to me because he wasn't having success on these sites. And I said, can I take a look at what you're writing, your profile? And I logged in, and his basically would write to the women and just say, I like your profile. Can I call you? And I had to explain, like online, especially because people don't know who they're talking to. There has to be kind of a rapport established first. Women usually are turned off when the guy's first email is, what's your phone number? And that's what he was doing. And it was frustrating for him because he just wanted to talk to them, get to know them. And I said, this is a whole new world. You have to get comfortable with this online dating experience, which again is different than the apps. And we can get into that. And also just re-entering and going out. Where do people midlife go who are divorced moms and dads? They're not going to generally go to the bar scene. That's for the younger crowd. So they have to think of creative ways where they're going to meet like-minded people that could yield something. So that's one segment that has those challenges, and we can talk more about that. And then there are the 30-somethings, 40-somethings who have not gotten married yet. That's a goal of theirs, to have a family. Maybe a lot of their friends have been paired off already. They got, met their significant other in their 20s and got married. And they have challenges, I think, to stay positive, to not be, bitter and frustrated. And, they've dated a lot. They've met a lot of the people on the apps. They've been on them for a while. And they have their own unique challenges of maybe, what am I doing that I can work on and make this the year that something happens, because they have a goal and they're usually successful in other areas of their life, in their careers and, lots of friends and social, but that one segment, that one portion of their life that they're looking forward to getting to the next chapter is eluding them.
Right. Wow. Yes, I can definitely see the differences. I didn't even think about the folks that were in their 30s and 40s and 50s who might be looking to find their first marriage or start a family. I guess because I'm thinking from my own frame of reference, which is like, I'm 47, I've been married, and if things were to fall apart, like, I don't even know where I would start. So I really love how you're framing this conversation and like the different directions, and how you view your clients so uniquely and special. That's such a gift for them. That's really cool.
Right. And I'll just add, because I am in Manhattan, and I know your podcast reaches far and wide, but certainly here people tend to also sometimes marry later, right? So midlife dating in New York and other urban areas too, I think it can be people in their 30s and 40s who are looking to get married for the first time, because the average age of men and women getting married, just keeps getting pushed back, for a variety of reasons. So, there are different segments that fall into that age bracket.
Yeah, for sure. And so now that we are in this like COVID-19 world, how is this looking for your clients? Like how has it shifted for them?
Well, it's definitely been a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think people have had to be creative. Things are changing, at least in New York. I know in other parts of the country, it's not going well. But here we have entered phase 3. And so there's a little bit more flexibility. But early on, March, April, May, where people were very concerned about going out, and there was no bar or something to sit outside, or restaurants have dinner, people were doing a lot of Zoom dating. And that is unique because it does give you, I've had people's feedback, it gives you the chance to really connect with somebody without any crutches, no alcohol, no restaurant, no distraction, music night, you're just talking. So in that way, it was a positive. But after one or two Zoom, it kind of loses the momentum because you're just talking. And I do think early on in a relationship, you have to experience things together. I think that's important to create a bond and a connection. So people had to be creative, like watching a movie together or painting something together or playing a game, something where they could keep the momentum going and keep it interesting. The next phase where people could go for a socially distanced walk, I set up some of those. People went a few feet apart from each other, wore their masks. I did get a feedback, it's kind of hard to see if you're attracted to someone with a mask covering, half their face. But people did it just to meet in real life. And I think there's value in that. And now people are going out on, dates where they can have a drink, go for a picnic in the park. I've set up that, grab a coffee and go sit down. And people are I think people don't want to lose this time. They don't want 6 months to go by and they've lost that time when they're serious about meeting somebody.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think that's on everybody's mind, is not losing time and not losing the momentum of whatever you have created or started with somebody. I can only imagine like what that must be like for your clients. So I can definitely visualize like what that must be like. I can't imagine having a date over Zoom. Or I guess when we were younger, in the 80s, we'd call somebody, we'd be on the phone, but we'd be able to eventually see them in school or in class or whatever. So you would get both, you'd spend time on the phone with them and then actually get to be with them. So kind of, I can't imagine that would be tough.
Well, and I think it's fine, like again, for an initial connection, and maybe you can kind of just see the basics are there. But I think for people, if they don't know they're going to see each other in real life, I think it naturally falls out, like fades away, because there's no carrot hanging in the future. There's no like, oh, we're going to see each other. And I say this because I know one woman, I set up one of my clients. She, I think, did 3 or 4 Zoom dates with someone I introduced her to. And again, wasn't ideal, but my clients were all open to it. And then after a while, she kind of lost interest because he wasn't even up for doing a walk. And that's everyone's just, everyone has to make their decisions about what they're comfortable with.
Right.
And that's probably telling even as far as compatibility, because she was willing to do a responsible socially distanced walk. And I think she just didn't know if they would ever, whenever they would meet. And so I think there's a balance, being smart about it. But I think to know if there's a connection, I tell people you have to see someone in 3D, you have to smell them, you have to watch how they walk, their body language, and that you really can't do via Zoom.
Oh gosh, no. And I imagine, you and I are doing this via Zoom. I imagine if we were face to face and we were on a panel and we were interviewing, it would be different too, So I totally get that. Yeah. So, all right. So now that things are beginning to open up in Manhattan and across the country, now, first of all, do you only have clients in Manhattan, or are you national too?
Primarily in Manhattan. I've taken clients in Boston, Miami, so occasionally outside of New York City, but the bulk of my clients are in Manhattan.
Okay. And so when you think about how does it even work? Like when you get a new client and someone comes to you, and let's say a woman, let's just say she has been married before and she's kind of putting herself back out there. That's got to be different for sure, like you said earlier, than the person who's never been married. So I'm just really curious, like what does your intake look like, or how does that pan out?
Well, so when someone is getting back out there, I think, there are a few things they need to do. One is to kind of evaluate their mindset, right? Going into anything, you have to bring a positive mindset. But I think for dating, it's especially important. And I've had people say to me, like, I'll be happy when I meet that person, my partner. And it's really not the right approach, because people are drawn to happy people. So if you're trying to bring someone who's happy, him or herself, to you, you need to lead with that. And I say that because it's not easy. Some people, they've maybe gone through a bad divorce, or they've been alone since their divorce and they feel lonely. It's easy to kind of maybe look at the negative or feel badly for yourself. But I think you have to really recalibrate and figure out, how do I project my best self and a happy, positive self? And that means kind of getting back to yourself. A lot of women I've talked to, if they have kids, sometimes, if I ask their interests, they don't really have interests outside of what relates to their children, right? So they haven't done a lot for themselves. So I would say pick up some new interests again, or old interests that you kind of left by the wayside. And that's always going to be interesting to people, that you have a life, you're happy. So I would say that's one thing. I would say as they're going back into the dating world, kind of be your best self physically, meaning take care of yourself. It's easy when you have a crazy schedule, and again, you have kids, you don't take care of yourself the way you used to, but that's important, right? Because if you're online, your pictures are going to be the first starting point on the apps to someone to reach out. People are visual, so that has to be strong. When you show up on your date, put together, feeling your best self, exercising, taking care of yourself. I'd love to find a time at some point to talk about the pictures, because I think that's really important about what people use on the sites.
Okay.
And then, thinking about what they're looking for. If you're back out after a long time, you haven't dated, I think it's time to do some soul searching and really think about, and this is what ties into what you do, what went wrong, what wasn't working for them, and use that information so that the next person they pick and they choose to invest their time with is going to bring to the table the qualities that they know are important to feel fulfilled, to feel respected and appreciated, and so on.
Yeah, I really like that. So what I heard you say was that you want to come to this opportunity or the matchmaking process with a positive attitude, and you want to know that your headspace is in there, like you're in the right frame of mind. Because like you said, happy people are attracted to happy people. They're attracted to positivity. They're attracted to, happiness. And, I think about, I'm sure I've seen this in a movie or something somewhere where they portray these women, and they're just like, they go on these first dates and all they do is complain or compare to their ex or something like that. And I'm always like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, no. So I would imagine that does happen though, on these dates.
Sure. Men and women.
Yeah.
I tell people on their dates, they shouldn't be talking about their exes, their ex-husbands, their ex-boyfriends, girlfriends. And I remember I had a divorced client who didn't have a great divorce, and she didn't like to talk about it. And she was worried, like, what if it comes up? How do I answer it? And I said, you shouldn't be talking about it. To me, that's not a good use of a date time. And I think you can answer it very politely and say, you know what? I'd so much rather use our time for me to get to know you, or for you to get to know me. We can talk about that some other time down the road. So you don't seem evasive and like you have something to hide, but it's really no one's business on your first date what happened in your marriage. If you are, connecting and you feel real connection and the date is going a long time and they start opening up, you could choose to offer something or two, but I generally don't feel like that's a great first date conversation. First date conversation should be something that's going to make you smile and bring out your happy energy. I can't imagine most people's divorces are going to elicit that kind of energy and smiling. So I would keep it to topics that you really, travel. What are you reading? If you have children, your children, things that are going to bring about a connection on a positive note, not commiserating over mutually, unhappy divorces or that kind of thing. It's just not productive first date or second date conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's really wise. And those are great tips. That's really helpful.
I have one more piece of advice on the re-entering question. One other thing that I find really interesting as far as like mindset is when people go out and what they're looking for and how they approach a potential date. I've had people come back and say, like, I don't know if he's my future husband or, she's my future wife. And I said, well, you don't need to know that after an hour or two of drinks. That's not something you need to know. You just need to know you enjoyed their company. Was there an attraction, and is there enough starting point? And there's a great self-help author, anthropologist. I don't know if you know Helen Fisher, and she's great. And she's written a few books that I really enjoyed. I would recommend them to anyone. And when I once had the opportunity to speak with her, and she's dedicated her life's work on this topic of finding love and what makes people, why we love is one of her books. And I said to her, what piece of advice would you give somebody who's looking to find love? And the one thing she said was, look for reasons to say yes. And I just thought that was such great advice. It's just so true. If you look for reasons to say no, you'll find them. No one is perfect. But if you look for the reasons to say yes and you go into a date with that mindset, you're going to notice and pick up on all the good qualities that potential partner has. And I think it's just the right kind of mindset as you approach dating, as you get back out in there.
Yeah, I love that. And, I do that in my marriage too. And because it's really easy to look for the negative and the no, because we're programmed to do that on some level. So it's looking for the yeses or looking for the positivity or the gratitude and just like the little things. Because yeah, no, I really love that. She is incredible. I would like to look more into her books. I'm so glad you mentioned her. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the pictures. I'm curious to hear for the apps and for the, I guess, is it also not just for apps, but like social media? Because here's how I think about it. Like if I find somebody online, I'm going to go to social media. I'm going to go check them out.
Definitely. No,
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, if you're single, your social media is someone getting a deeper insight into you more than the 4 or 5 pictures you choose to put on your, app or your dating profile. So both things.
Mm-hmm.
For starters, with your pictures that you choose for your social media, I'm always amazed at how some people do not realize what is a good photo of themselves and what's not. I think you should consult a friend to start, and ideally even a friend of the opposite sex. But the picture should be current. A lot of people use pictures they love of themselves from, 4 or 5 years ago, and they'll say, well, that still looks like me. And the fact is, we age every year, right? And so if you're not using pictures from within the last year, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Because if you put your favorite pictures from 5 years ago and you don't match them in real life, that person's expectations were set at a certain level that you're not going to meet. And then even if they might have liked you if you put current pictures up and you match them, but already there's a disappointment there. So if you put the best pictures you ever took from several years ago, that's not the right approach. The pictures should be from the last year. They should be flattering, not rolling out of bed, no makeup on, whatever, guys in crinkled shirts. That's not going to draw anybody in, but they shouldn't be with your hair and makeup professionally done at someone's wedding or something, with the professional photographer, because that's probably not how you're going to show up on your date. So you want to find a balance where you look great, it's flattering, but really not with the best lighting, best hair and makeup. It should look like you on any given day when you put yourself together. I also think that the picture should show you doing something interesting. It's okay to have one shot. People tend to take pictures when they're out socially at a bar or restaurant or whatever, especially if you're younger. Or one shot with just not much going on. But if you can put a shot of yourself, I don't know, hiking someplace beautiful, by the water, boating, it already evokes like a positive energy when someone clicks on your picture, right? And it shows you're interesting and you do interesting things. So I would really think about the pictures you select. Like, what is this showing about myself, not just telling, oh, if you write us something, I like to do this, I like to travel, I like my friends and family, everybody writes that. But with your pictures, you can really show who you are, maybe by the Eiffel Tower, that you do travel, whatever it is. So I would think about what you're conveying in them, make them accurate, and smile. Especially sometimes guys. I find that the guys have a hard time smiling, I don't know, in some of their pictures. And that just shows I'm friendly and I'm approachable and I'm warm. And people just look so much more attractive smiling. So make sure you include some of those.
Yeah, I think I like those ideas. I need to update my photo on social media.
Yeah.
That reminds me. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, and so that goes to the pictures you select for your dating profiles. Mm-hmm. Social media, if your Facebook or Instagram is something, public, I would really think about, what am I showing? If I'm a guy, am I showing myself out, partying every night with a drink in my hand? Or am I conveying that I'm a family man, with my nieces and nephews, if you're not married yet, or with my kids? Right. What are you conveying about yourself through your social media? And again, with the women, I would say the same thing. I wouldn't put up pictures, and I know this might sound old-fashioned, but I have a client who put up a picture of herself that I don't think is a nice photo of her, even though she's with her colleagues. I know she's very happy, but I said I would put that to privacy settings, because if someone were Googling you, just and looked you up, it's just not flattering. And you want to lead with like your best self, again, accurate. And she agreed. I said, that's something, I know that picture makes you happy, but there's so many other great pictures of you. You just look more like you look in real life.
Yeah. So you have to think more than just what makes you feel good. You have to think about, what am I portraying to the world? I mean, really is what it comes down to. And that's the crazy part about social media, is it is we can create our virtual world and show people, what we're about and what we're interested in. I think that's really wise and good advice.
In addition to that, and not just the pictures, then the content, what are you posting about?
Right.
If you're posting a lot about politics, as people tend to be right now, that's going to let someone know potentially, are we compatible on that level? If you're, whatever you're choosing to write about is also going to give someone a window into you. So I would think about that, again, wisely and strategically as you think about your social media.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you tired of trying every fad diet out there? Are you sick of spending hours at the gym with little to no results? Because that was me, y'all. I want you to consider trying the Faster Way to Fat Loss, the online program that will empower you to transform your life through effective cutting-edge fitness and nutrition strategies with no supplements, none at all, or gym memberships required. So how is the Faster Way different? Well, the Faster Way to Fat Loss isn't a weight loss program, although most of the clients do lose weight. And you guys, I am a client and I am loving this program. Instead, it's a guided program run by one of the certified coaches. My coach, her name is Teresa, and she is awesome. The online program is designed to teach you how to live a healthy lifestyle so you can burn fat, improve your health, and feel incredible every single day. You'll have the energy to play with your kids, go on those someday adventures. You guys, we just had one a few weeks ago, and keep up with your busy day-to-day life. You'll do all of this with the whole food nutrition cycle, which they cover and explain all of. Easy to follow meal plans. And you guys, they are super, super easy and simple. I don't love to cook, but these meal plans make it really easy. And workouts for every level of fitness. There is a gym workout, a home workout, and low impact workout. So if you're brand new or intermediate or advanced, there's something for everybody. They use science-backed cutting-edge strategies that really, really work. So if you guys want to learn more about the Faster Way to Fat Loss, head to my website, which is www.fasterwaycoach.com/#Lisa Mustard. I'll put that in the show notes so you guys can just make it super easy and click on it. I hope you come and join us. Okay, so I have a question for you, a personal question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but how did you meet your husband?
Sure. So I met my husband, and it's kind of a funny story. The first time at a charity bachelor auction at Soho House. He was not a bachelor, but he was in attendance. And I remember seeing him with my friends, and I was there in my capacity. I just started my matchmaking business, and I thought he was handsome. We noticed him, and we went over to talk to him. And I just really wanted him at that point to be in my network because I was starting a business, and that was my goal, to get attractive. He was very charming and friendly. Guys, I used to do a lot of events. I'm certainly not doing that now with COVID, but I used to do a lot of parties and charity events. And we started talking, and I said, I'd love for you to come to, I told him what I did. I'd love for you to come to one of my events. And he said, well, okay, but I only want to date the matchmaker.
Oh,
And I was, told a little white lie, which I don't like to tell any lies. I said, well, I'm involved, because I really want him to come. I gave him my card. I never reached out. And then a year and change later, a year and a half, we were invited to a party together, and he reached out, and we both went to the party. We didn't see each other there, but we ended up following up with a lunch. And the timing was right. Timing is so important in life. He had just been separated when I met him, and now he had a year and a half to date, and I think that's important. And I was also just starting my business, so I was very focused on my business, not myself at that time. And a year and a half later, I was able to take more time to focus on myself. And we had a great lunch, and we actually didn't remember right away that we had met at that charity event. And within 10 minutes of meeting him at the restaurant, he's like, we've met. I looked a little different. My hair was shorter, it was a couple, year and a half prior. And right away I remembered talking to him. I remembered everything. And the rest is history. That was about 10 years ago.
Oh my gosh. That's an amazing story. Wow. So he was interested in the matchmaker, and you were trying to get him to be in your network. That's really, So the ins and outs of being a matchmaker, how do you know you're set up to do this type of work? Like what makes a good matchmaker, I guess?
Well, that's a great question. There are other matchmakers out in the country and in New York. And what I find is what makes someone a good matchmaker is someone who gets people. I think that's got to be the starting point. You have to be able to read people. You have to be able to talk with someone and understand them and figure them out. I'm a talker. Anyone who knows me will say I'm a talker, but I'm also a listener. And I'm always listening to what's being said, how it's being said, and what's not being said. Mm-hmm. So that's part of it, is getting people. I think you have to have a very big network. My clients are all diverse, different religions, different backgrounds, different ages. So you have to have a very diverse and large network, which just means being a people person. Yeah. When you're out and about, connecting with people and just having that database. Because a lot of friends would set up their friends if they knew anybody, but they'll say, oh, I don't know any single guys. I don't know any single girls. So the matchmaker's role is to have a large network of single men and women. And I think a good matchmaker is honest and gives feedback. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes I think is missing. It's the hardest part of the job. I will tell you, if I get feedback, especially if my client likes someone and they want to see that person again, and I hear from the other person that they didn't think it was a romantic match, sometimes it's just there was no spark, no chemistry, nice person, didn't feel it, but sometimes there's feedback. And I have to convey it. And that's the part where, you're the messenger and it's delivering some tough feedback. But my job is not to judge. I'm here to help. That's my only role. Yeah. And maybe you can relate to this. And so I share it, and often it's on point. And sometimes my client might not agree, but I'll say to them, well, why do you think they said that? Why do you think they left with that impression? Let's talk about why you're giving that impression. Yeah, so being a matchmaker and being so involved in people's personal lives, just as you are, you get to know your clients, and you can see patterns, you can see things that they're doing. Sometimes I already know it even before I'm setting them up. I can see what's going on. I do like what I call an intake interview with my clients to start. We spend 2.5 hours talking about their family, their work, their religious upbringing and views, their interests and things like to do for fun. But we also talk about prior relationships, and I'm really getting an understanding of what's happened up till now. So sometimes I have an idea already what might be going on, but sometimes it takes setting up and the feedback to get a better understanding of either what's happening or choices being made and so on. So that's where I am a little bit of a therapist, I guess. My main thing is, trying to find the quality matches, people who have potential, who meet a lot of what my clients are looking for. But again, it goes hand in hand, because if something is happening on a fundamental level that's not working, I could set someone up on 1,000 dates. It doesn't matter. And nothing is going to take, because the same issue is going to affect everything.
Right. Yeah. That's so wise. And that's what a lot of what therapists do is, we recognize the pattern, we help them process it, and ask them how do they want to be different moving forward. I think what's different and what I really get excited about is, like, it seems as though a matchmaker, as a coach, you have a little bit more, you can say the things a lot faster and give more advice. And sometimes as therapists, we have to walk that line of, well, how do I help them come to the realization maybe that this is getting in the way, versus as a coach or as a matchmaker, you're like, look, this is what I'm seeing. And I'm just going to tell you. I do think that depending on the relationship with the client, in my role, I can be a little more blunt and a little more, open, but I'm guessing you can get to it a lot faster sometimes.
1,000%. I can. And I'm not not a doctor or anything like that, but I've been doing this 12 years and I've seen and heard a lot. And I can definitely, I give the feedback within, an hour of the date. I'm usually talking to my clients on the other side, or the next day, and I can deliver it. I mean, sometimes the feedback, is simple, even just manners, honestly. I once had a guy client who went on a date I set him up with, and he was walking way ahead of the woman. She told me after on the street, and she said, I didn't like it. He's so far ahead of me. It's rude. And I spoke to him after, and I told him that was feedback. And he said, oh, my family always, gives me a hard time. I'm a fast walker. And I said, well, that's one thing to do with your family and friends. When you're on a date, the woman wants you next to her. There's almost also a level of, like, I know that we don't need protection, but that sense of, like, I'm concerned that the person next to me is okay. It was just something I think he had some understanding that he did it, but now that a woman is saying it, that doesn't make you feel like that guy is concerned about my well-being. And it's a small thing and it's easy to fix. And that's one small example. I've heard table manners, those things, those are easy, we work on. But then it goes to, I've had some people say that someone is either very negative, they're talking about very negative topics, or honestly, sometimes I think for women especially, and especially if someone's been in a serious relationship and now in midlife, they're back into the dating world, they may not know how to flirt as much and send out those signals. And that's really important. I recommend a great book called Love Signals. I'm sorry because I'm forgetting the author right now, but I love it because it's about body language and understanding your own body language and what you're putting out and being able to read other people's body language. So that I think is a fun read anyway. It's just very interesting and I find it very helpful for people.
Yeah.
So I'm able to convey that and come up with solutions, right? My role is to be kind of a problem solver and figure out what's going on so we can achieve our goal.
Yeah. Have you ever had somebody where you've given them the feedback, you've been the problem solver, and they're just not ready for it? They don't want to hear it. Yeah.
I have. My best clients and my clients who have success are people who say, tell me what it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm willing to work on myself. I feel like, first of all, everyone can be a better dater, but they'll say, I want to know. I want to know the feedback. It's very important to me. But I have had clients that they don't want the feedback and they don't want to work on anything. They just want to keep doing what they're doing and have success. And, sometimes you can just do what you're doing and you will have success. But for some people, there's a reason why they're going on lots and lots of dates and they've been single for the last decade and they're not. But I have had people who don't want to hear it.
Really? Yeah. And at the same time, they probably want what they want, but they're not willing to do anything different.
Absolutely, Lisa.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you I don't take those clients really anymore. When I first started, you have a learning curve yourself. But now I tell anybody who's going to work with me, we are a team. And my only goal is to be a support system for you and help you and find the right matches. But if I'm hearing feedback, I need to know that you are open-minded and you're going to take it and process it. We're going to talk about it and you're going to work on it. That's kind of like a promise I have them make to me, like an oath when we start, because otherwise we won't have success.
Right.
And some people have very honestly, I just had a wonderful client I adore. She just got engaged and she was a dream. She was beautiful, smart, successful. And even there was feedback, not even so much about what she was doing, because basically everyone fell for her, but feedback in her choosing, in who she was selecting. She was divorced, 38, and she was kind of spending time with some men who were not really giving her the level of attention and respect that she deserved. And we talked about, I guess, that feedback, if that's the right word there, but ways to identify it.
Yeah.
What does a man do who's serious about you?
Right.
And what's the behavior we know he's going to show? And if anything is coming up short, is he worth your time? He's taking you away from your goal. And now she's as happy as can be, but she got it. We would kind of debrief my setups and her own dates, and that's what it's a partnership.
Yeah. What a cool job. This episode of the Midlife Magic Podcast is sponsored by my favorite fitness apparel, Zyia Active. I discovered Zyia Active when I went looking for high quality and premium workout clothes, just like those luxury store and catalog brands, yet I wanted a budget-friendlier price tag. I love this brand because I live a very active lifestyle. I work out about 5 days a week, plus I love to go for runs and long walks, which I consider to be my very important self-care and podcast listening time. The clothes stay put, I'm not constantly pulling on my leggings or tugging on my sports bras, and they accentuate me in all the right places. And when I work from home, they are the perfect clothes for being comfortable and still stylish. And I can transition to running out the door to pick up our girls or run errands while still looking put together in my athleisure styles. My favorite workout leggings are the Lighten Tights, and my favorite everyday wear are the Everywhere pants. Yes, I literally wear them everywhere, every day. I can even wear them to business meetings or client consultations, and I can dress them up or down easily. Want to learn more? Head over to lisamustard.com and click on the activewear page. You can learn all about Zyia Active, the mission, the clothes, and see if they are a fit for you and your active life. From weight training to running to Zumba to yoga to CrossFit to bar to walking to tennis, Zyia Active has you covered. And don't forget about the active men in your life. They have an amazing men's line, plus clothes for active kids too. That's Zyia like papaya active. So see my site for all the details. That's lisamustard.com/active-wear. Marni, I'm just so fascinated by what you do. I'm like, maybe I should pivot and be a matchmaker. It sounds like so much
really fun. And when the engagements happen and the weddings and the babies, there's nothing better. It's really just the ultimate high. And that's a direct, showing of success and reward. It has its challenges when someone is very interested in someone I've introduced them to and they feel rejected or it doesn't work out. That's the not fun part. I also wanted to talk about, if it's okay, to go back to mindset, because again, with like my coaching, especially midlife dating, one thing I've seen that I think is really important to address is when people either come with their own baggage or assess other people's baggage. And I think it's important to know that dating in your 30s, 40s, and 50s is different than in your 20s, right? In your 20s, you meet someone in college, you're all like bright-eyed and, rosy future ahead. And at some point, you are going to have baggage by the inherent fact of dating and marriage or just relationships and life. So you can't expect someone to come into your life in their 30s, 40s, and 50s in a perfectly packaged, bow. And you have to accept someone, I think, warts and all, just like they're going to accept you. You're wonderful and great, but you have your things, whatever those things may be. And I have a great example of this because I had a client once in her mid-40s. She was 45, and she was still holding out the hope that maybe she could have a family. She had not been previously married. I think maybe she froze her eggs, but that was something she was open to, or meeting a divorced dad who had kids. She likes children. And I had a great guy in mind for her. I believe he was like 50, who did have children, but was open to having more. And great, successful, smart, funny. And I mentioned to her that he had custody of his children, full-time custody, because I knew that his wife had some emotional issues and he got custody. And when I told her that, because I'm very open with my clients, we discuss the person I have in mind and some of the things that are great and maybe some things that aren't ideal, but they're still, worth meeting. And she said, I don't want to get involved in that. That's too much for me to have a dad who, has full custody and has these issues with his ex who has mental health issues. And I really tried to encourage her to meet him. That's not his fault. That's not his doing. And frankly, the fact that he's a good, attentive, wonderful dad, that's great. In midlife, if someone's divorced with kids, at least you get to see what kind of parent they are, right? You might not know that when you're single in your 20s, but you can see that, and that's attractive. And he was a really devoted dad. She didn't want to meet him. And I can tell you, he's since gone on to get married and have another child as a, later in life dad at 50 something, but he said he was open to that and he could have maybe given that to her. And I can tell you that she didn't, she was one of my earliest clients. This is over 10 years ago. She didn't have success meeting someone and having a family, which I know is something she wanted. If I were having her as a client now, or in the last 10 years, I would have said, you have to meet him. I would have said, in the beginning, I was a little too deferential. But I have a success story with that, with someone who wasn't sure about someone, and she was my client, 40, and I basically, almost virtually bribed her to meet this guy because I knew he was a good guy. I knew him, and they've been together 8 years and very happy. And that was something where he wasn't her quote type, physical type, but he was still a handsome guy, a quality guy. And I'm glad I pushed her on that one. And that's something I learned early on, the first year or two. You sometimes people don't know, and they'll say no to someone who could be great for them.
Yeah. Yeah. You've really, your experience and your professionalism and then your intuition and just knowing you just have it. Like and I think that's kind of what makes a good therapist after a while is like, you've been around enough, you've seen enough, you've learned from things that you've done with folks and with your clients. And you just can kind of, you just get better, so I can only imagine like the success stories that you're having now. Gosh, this has been such a great interview. Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
Sure. Well, it's been so much fun and a pleasure being your guest and chatting with you. And I feel like we do have a symbiotic type of career choice. I think just a couple of big picture things. We talked about online dating earlier and the apps. And one thing I want to tell men and women in their midlife stage of dating is I really don't think it serves you well to lie about your age. I think that it's very tempting to do, especially, you see that you feel young and youthful. You don't feel your age. You think you look better than most people your age. So you can kind of justify it that way. But really, it's starting off on a dishonest note. And I don't think anyone really wants to start a relationship off with dishonesty. Even if you say, well, come clean, on the date or something. I think ultimately be confident, own where you are in your life, own your age, and the right person is not going to care about it. Yeah. And I find that people do that and fall into that trap of lying. And I know I've had conversations with my clients, they're just not interested. Yeah. If someone were to come clean on the first date, they would still rule them out just because they did lie. Yeah. And how do you trust what else is going to be true or not true? So that's one big picture advice I would offer. Yeah, I just, again, want to go back to putting in the effort. People are looking for companionship midlife. Maybe some people want to get remarried, or some people just might want someone to do things with and companionship. And I think sometimes people think that they can put the minimal amount of effort and get this great result. And it's work, it should be fun work, but it is work. Whether you go to a matchmaker, whether you have a dating coach, or whether you use the apps, or when the world gets back to being able to socialize and you can be out and about, it is work. Yeah. And so if you're going to be online and you don't bother to put anything interesting about yourself, or write anything like on Match that's interesting, because I have a lot of people say, oh, I just wrote something, I know it's not good. Well, if this is important to you, why wouldn't you take the time to write something good? Why wouldn't you really describe yourself? Don't put generic things that are going to apply to a million other profiles. Describe you and have someone read it, someone who knows you, and get their critique. Go on, put in the effort. I think if you really want this, make a point, again, when you can go back to socializing, to pick one or two things a month that are, draw a crowd that would be compatible, and buy a ticket to a charity event, or volunteer, or do something smart where there will be like-minded people of the opposite sex. I think sometimes advice especially goes to women about how to meet quality men. They'll say, oh, take a dance class, take a cooking class. And I actually don't think that's good advice. Most of the people who do those classes are women. Right. So I think you have to think, well, what would a guy be attracted to? And that might be something sportier, or something with a beer tasting, whiskey tasting, something where it's going to be a more co-ed crowd.
Yeah, that's really wise, because that's kind of what I would think too is, I'll just go do these things and maybe I'll meet, but you're probably not going to meet, you're going to meet a lot of new girlfriends, but not a lot of guys at a dance class. I can't imagine. I think most guys who are at a dance class are there with their spouses, they make them go. I mean, that's how I imagine it, at least.
Right. Or their fiancés practicing for their first wedding dance. That's a lot of the couples of them. You have to think wisely and strategically. Where would someone be who would be like-minded? Yeah. And then do something that you enjoy, so that even if you don't meet someone at that particular thing, you've done something worthwhile. You went to a lecture that's interesting, or you volunteered and you feel good about that. Yeah. And I would also tell people to tap into their synagogues and churches and things like that, if faith is important to you, or whatever it is important to you, that you can go someplace where like-minded people be. And I have one more piece of advice, which isn't really, it's kind of non sequitur, but I think it's important to tell people at this stage in their life. I think too, when people come out into the dating world from being in a long-term relationship or marriage, or even if they've been single for a while, there's kind of a sense of, I'm older now. I don't have to worry about what people think of me. I'm not going to play games. And if I want to sleep with someone early on, that's fine. And I don't know, it's 2020 and I can do whatever I want. And I would say that is kind of a detrimental mindset. And maybe I'm old fashioned here, but I've even seen it on advice for people, who cares? You can do what you want. You're in your 40s, 50s, and no one's going to judge you or care. It's really not about that to me. I think it's more about establishing a connection with somebody and knowing you have something before you get intimate. And I advise all my clients, I have clients in their 20s, the 20s, 30s, doesn't matter what age. I think when you don't know someone and you've had one or two really good dates, if you think on date 3, well, okay, I'm safe now and I can just do whatever I want, and he likes me or she likes me, it's not going to matter. But the truth is, if you don't really have a foundation or connection, you've kind of taken away that excitement that builds up early on in the dating stages, and you're never going to get that back, right? That's such a unique period of time as far as like looking forward to being intimate.
Yeah.
And I also think for sometimes if you put the physical first, it can really shift the focus. Yeah. And I once had a radio show and I had John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars and Men Are From Venus, and we talked about that. And he really, put it really well and hit the nail on the head when he said, you have to have a bond and a connection first. That might be 10 dates in, that might be 15 dates. There's no magic number. Yeah. But when you know you have something real, then that's a beautiful thing to be able to get to that next level. So I would caution people, don't think, 3 dates is a magic number, because then maybe you don't hear back after the 4th date and you're, frustrated and angry at yourself and, disappointed. And I think it's a way to set yourself up for a short-term thing versus something if you're really looking for a long-term partnership.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. I really, really like how you phrase that. I think that's for all ages. Know that you have something, you have a connection. I wanted to ask you, as you were talking, I was thinking about the quote or the saying, opposites attract. And what do you think about that when it comes to dating?
I think it's a great quote. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that really bears out in real life. Yeah. And I think there are nuances to that question. Yeah. I once read a really good book. I love reading. I'm very well read on the topic of the psychology and science of attraction. I enjoy learning about these things. And it was by Andrew Trees, Decoding Love. Great book. And he talked about opposites in some regards can be a match, but when it comes to certain core fundamental things that people have in common, that tends to bear out long-term, like with data about marriages and couples that stay together. And that means similar religious backgrounds, similar educational backgrounds, similar socioeconomic background. So those things can be in common. And then other things can be very different, introvert, extrovert, that kind of thing. So I think that it's twofold. Yeah. The core things that he talks about really are what you have in common. It's not, written in stone, but it tends to be what makes for long-term relationships. Helen Fisher wrote a great book, Why Him, Why Her? And that really talks about personality types, if people are really interested in that. And that's where opposites and similar personalities bear out, because she talks about an explorer personality does really well with another explorer. Yeah. And a builder does really well with another builder. But then you can have someone who's more of a negotiator and director or something. And that's like a right brain, left brain type of personality, creative versus practical numbers. That's where opposites do attract. And I'm not being as articulate about it because I haven't read it in a very long time, but she comes up with these personality traits that are based on your hormone level, whether dopamine, serotonin, estrogen, testosterone, and that's what we all have a little bit of everything, but where they fall in your makeup and how it affects your brain, and then how you're drawn to certain people with those similar personality types. It's a great read. Yeah, and it gives a scientific explanation about why we are drawn to people and who's the most compatible.
Ooh, I'm going to have to get that one too. Yeah. Just expanded my reading. Like, I have to go out and get all these books, because I've always had this belief that when your values are in line, then that's more important than anything. That's kind of how I frame it for me.
Well, and when I see it, I do a lot of reading, like I said, and I love to see what people dedicated their lives' work to studying the brain and love. But when I see it very practical, like in the field, when I set up my clients, no doubt, they connect with what they have in common. Yeah. That is almost always, they come back, we both, really, close with our families, and we spend, every other weekend with our nieces and nephews. We're family-oriented people. We both love X kind of music, or we both love animals, or someone hates animals, or whatever it is. I mean, not hates, but, hates cats or dogs. Right. They connect with what's in common. Yeah. So and again, those things like music and that's kind of superficial. But where the values are really go to, that's critical. Yeah. If you are opposite in that, I don't think there's any chance. But if you share the common values, which can come through in your conversation, that's where I find long-lasting connections take hold.
Wow. Gosh, I'm so loving this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time to be here. I want to make sure we cover everything. Is there anything else that you have to give us?
Well, I appreciate it. I think you could see I could probably talk for hours on this topic. So in our time frame of this podcast, I think I hit the big points, and it's just been a pleasure. Thank you so much again for having me.
Well, how do people get more of you in their lives if they want to connect with you? Are you...
Sure. So I had a website which is being revamped right now. So the best way for someone to find me is one, through social media. They can reach out to me on Facebook, Marni Kagan, send me a note, or shoot me an email. Okay. And it's mjkagan, Kagan, at kaganconsultants.com.
Cool. Okay. And that's how I found you too. I think I found you on LinkedIn. And I just want to give a plug for Roger for, inadvertently hooking us up, because I interviewed him, The Truth About Marriage. And as part of it, I got to watch his documentary, and that's how I learned about you. And I just like, I love this woman. She's so great. And so when I had this whole idea to talk about dating in midlife, I was like, I'm going to go straight to her. So thank you so much. This has just been awesome. I'm just like, I've loved this conversation.
Well, I'm happy to come again. Any other topics that you have in mind? And again, thank you. And Roger's fantastic. And the movie, The Truth About Marriage, is a must watch. I think people, whether you're happily married or single, just enjoy it. And I just want to offer to any of the listeners out there in their midlife, you can have great success and find great love at any stage of your life, but especially midlife, because you know yourself. You should hopefully know what you're looking for, and the best is yet to come.
Oh, that's awesome.
But stay positive.
Well, that's this week's episode of the Midlife Magic Podcast.
Don't forget to join us next time for another episode. Thank you for listening.